Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of Feel the Burn podcast presented by Burn City Sports. I'm Rowan Donaghy. Got my man Jacob Harden here, Lamar Fields, Franklin Middle should join any minute now. What I wanted to start with today is jumping on Arizona Cardinals and the Kyler Murray injury and everything that happened last night and what it means for the coaching staff, the Cardinals moving forward, all that.
I think it's tough to look at it because when you have an injury like this, you're giving your coaching staff kind of an excuse for why the season has gone so wrong. Everybody already knows that the season has gone terribly wrong, and all this has done is giving Kingsbury a chance to be like, well, my QB was injured for 2 weeks already, and now he's out for the rest of the season. I haven't had a full shot yet of coaching this team, and all you're doing is you're giving him an excuse. Um, to coach another year, which is I don't think anybody really wants that. And the other thing you have to worry about is this affecting next season. Right now, I feel like the Cardinals are in damage control mode. You got to you're not making the playoffs this year, but there's always next season. And what we don't want is Kyler Murray being out for the first 6 weeks of next year because the ACL injury, that's a 9-10 month injury. He's out till middle of September, October of next season. So it's one of those things where you have got to make sure, and he should be getting surgery in the next couple of weeks. He wants to get it as soon as possible. But I think it'll be a career-defining moment for him as a young quarterback. This will be his first major injury that he's faced. And if he wants to, he can come back and be, one of the better quarterbacks in the league and lead the Cardinals next year, or he's going to come back and he's never going to be the same. He's going to be that quarterback that always has a lingering knee injury, never the same after surgery. So it's definitely it's a big moment. And I would say Cardinals, this team for the next 5, even 10 years could be defined by this, how Kyler Murray gets away with this injury.
Yeah, I agree with some of those statements. I definitely agree with that. I don't think 5 to 10 years, but I definitely agree just the way free agency and trades and everything happens in the NFL so quick. Rebuilds can happen over a few seasons. I just feel like no matter what happens, Kliff Kingsbury, even though he has dealt with a lot of injuries, is out the door regardless. I think it gives Kyler Murray a longer leash, I would say, with the fan base on whether or not they're going to give up on him sooner or later. Lamar, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think even with the injuries, that it's time to move on from Kingsbury. I mean, a lot of people been injured, but they still had a ton of talent at receiver. There's no reason for this team to score. What they scored last night, 13 points.
13.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with all the receiving talent and running with James Conner, and still even with Colt McCoy as a serviceable backup, he can move the team. They should score more than 13 points.
Yeah, it's been a problem all season, man. Even like first couple of weeks, they didn't have D Hop, but it's still this team was expected to score in the high 20s, 30s every weekend, week out, and lose some shootouts that they was going to lose. I think the offense definitely been underperforming. I think the whole team should be under a microscope and clean house. Even though, like we said, there's been a lot of injuries this season. It's hard to judge this team. Jacob said it perfectly. Uh, it's hard to judge this team. It hasn't been a whole team, but I think
Yeah,
they haven't gotten over last season yet, and I feel like this season is setting up to just linger into next season, which all starts with the head coach, and the mentality going into the offseason and training camp.
yeah,
I
they got
think
to figure it out. They got to figure it out because the Niners ain't going nowhere. Seattle gonna have a high top 5 pick, get better, so they have to figure something out quick.
and
Be a
one of the
big
main
offseason.
problems I saw from last week, yesterday was it was some of the it was DeAndre Hopkins, it was Marquise Brown, it was Isaiah Simmons, it was some of the better players on the Cardinals roster that were making the mistakes. It wasn't as if it was injuries. You had a 4th and 2 situation, Marquise Brown, and he drops a pass. It pretty much changed the whole complexion of the game. And then later on, you had a DeAndre Hopkins just careless with the football, carrying it in one hand, fumble, and they returned that for a touchdown. And all of a sudden, the game looks completely different. And I think it was one of those things where all season the blame has been put on the injuries. And yesterday, it wasn't as if Colt McCoy was having a bad game. It was some of the key players that just weren't stepping up how they need to be stepping up, because that was a game that the Cardinals handed to the Patriots. It was a game that they should have won, they needed to win, and they didn't.
Yeah, I mean they only scored in the second quarter last night, right? Like It was 0-0 at the end of the first, and then 13-10 at the half, and not to get at least one more field goal or a point, period. And in the second half, you really got no chance of winning in this league, man. If you can only score in one quarter of the game. Colt McCoy is a serviceable backup, though, as y'all pointed out.
He's one of the best in the league.
Yeah. For a second last night, I was even thinking, like, man, this team looks almost a little better with Colt McCoy. He spreads out the ball a little more, doesn't panic as much. Not that Kyler really panics, but he'll take off out of that pocket real quick instead of just keeping his eyes downfield, which, I mean, you can't blame anybody for that. I'm about to add my man Franklin in, and we can keep the conversation going.
The thing with McCoy is he gets the ball out quick.
Yeah.
He ain't going to hold the ball long. If somebody open quick, he's going to get the ball out.
And they looked good in that first half. We'll say one thing on Kliff. It was a 13-7 game. You have a chance to make it 16-7. You have a 4th and 3 situation at around the 40-yard line. You're looking at a decently long field goal, but Kliff looks to go for it with 40 seconds left on the clock. And let's say they do get that first down. Well, you still have 0 timeouts and 40 yards to go. Maybe settle for a shorter field goal, but they don't get the first down. It's tipped away. Patriots take over with the ball with 3 timeouts, 40 seconds left. They kick a field goal, send it to half, 13-10 game. And it's just stuff like that that's kind of been a reminder all season of just the lack of coaching knowledge, I will say, and just poor decisions that can really change a game. And something like that, instead of a 16-7 game, you got a 13-10 game. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, huge difference with the momentum and everything. My man Franklin Miller just joined us, but I thought exactly at that point, the second end of the second quarter, I really thought they blew it right there. I was expecting them to kick the field goal, and they went for it in turnover downs. Franklin, we were just talking about the Kyler Murray injury and what it means for everything, and Jacob was bringing up the point that it might give Kliff an excuse of why he hasn't been successful this season, and I was wondering your thoughts on it. Pretty much all of that. Any angle you want to go with?
Yeah, no, just to echo on that. Condolences to Kyler Murray. I know, like, a non-contact injury like that is tough. It's happened a lot in sports, and yeah, a lot of talk, especially with like the whole thing of like just how it happened, and just kind of it seemed like it buckled just looking at the instant replay. But yeah, echoing what Jacob said earlier about Kliff Kingsbury, I would say I wouldn't say it gives them an excuse, although the Cardinals might keep him because of this. I think that Kliff Kingsbury we kind of know who he is with and without Kyler Murray. So in my opinion, this shouldn't be a reason for him to have an excuse to stay. I don't think that would be in the cards. I think the main thing, though, to take away from the Kyler Murray situation is what are they going to do, not just with Kliff Kingsbury, but with Steve Keim. I think that there's been a lot of mistakes that, especially with roster involvement, that Steve Keim has made since 2015. I mean, I've seen on Twitter a little bit of like how Steve Wilkes is having, semi-success with Carolina. Carolina's still in the thick of things because of a bad division they're in. But I've heard a lot about like how whether it's draft picks, whether it's coaching decisions, whether it's personnel around their quarterback, that they just haven't been able to get it done. So my curiosity lies more so is Michael Bidwell gonna go the route of wanting to get rid of the GM before Kliff, and try to give Kliff the kind of personnel that matches what he's looking for, kind of have like a 1-2 punch set on like what they see fit, or will they just revamp and just get a new head coach? My gut feeling is telling me that Kliff's probably gonna stay, but I don't think that should be a reason for it. But I think the main thing is like, should Steve Keim stay? And I say the answer is no to that. And I think this injury kind of adds on more to that as well. So
I think he's had a lot of good moves in the past, bringing over Marquise Brown. I think that was a good addition, some speed. Zach Ertz, veteran leadership. J.J. Watt, veteran leadership. But this season, he has done a horrible job. And the trade deadline was a joke. The Cardinals were already very injured. There was a lot of needs on the offensive line, a lot of needs on defense. And they got Robbie Anderson. And it was one of those things. It was like, what are you doing? And Robbie Anderson did have like 4 catches, but that doubled his season in one game. And then just the draft pick with Trey McBride going. They traded away their first round pick, so their first pick in the second round, they get a tight end, Trey McBride, after they just got Zach Ertz. And they barely play Trey McBride this season until Zach Ertz gets injured. And it's just some of the things he's been doing over the past year have definitely been questionable. And yeah, I agree with you. If they're going to start anywhere, it's got to start with the GM.
Yeah, I think they got to bring in some more meat, man. Instead of all the fast, quick players on the outside, they need to bring in some blockers, some linebackers. They need to get the O line and D line ready, man. That's really what games are won and lost. And I think they got the players. What you about to say, Lamar?
In the trenches, that's where the game was. That's where the games are won. Can't
Yes, sir.
catch the quarterback. I don't care who you got at receiver or quarterback. You don't get hurt or injured or ain't got no time to pass.
Yeah, it's pretty much what I've seen from the Cardinals, just in my opinion. Murray really don't have no time, man. Any play that he makes, he really has to make backyard, street style, just running around and letting it fly.
And also to Kliff's defense, to his one defense, I would say he's had to really scheme around battle. Well, not just battle line play, but like injuries in the O line. And there's times where I feel like he's done a decent job, but there's only so much you can do with that. It's still not really a big excuse to why he should be gone. But if there's like a defense more so, it would be not only just to Kyler Murray's injury, but more so to the O-line injuries. But we'll see what happens at the end of the season. I just think they should probably just get rid of both.
Yeah, that's what I think. Just clear out the house, man. Start fresh with everything new, from coordinators to GM to head coach. Just try to build a better team and even just improve next season. Do like a 2 or 3 year revamp. Just trying to get right for maybe 25, 26.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they got 4 games left this season.
Yes, I believe so.
4.
I think they have like 4 games left. I don't know if you guys touched on this earlier, but yeah, I know that a lot of players, especially throughout the year and even in the past years, talked about about like different grass in terms of like turf and like just grass. I know the Cardinals do grass, so I don't know if that's like an angle where it's like if that needs to like if there's like an angle to where it's like, oh, is turf really that bad, or is it kind of just more so one of those freak injuries, or is it like does like players have a point with all that? Then I would say my angle is like I think players do have a point with turf, but I think that it's also just a situation where grass can pretty much it's more likely that it will happen less on grass than it does on turf. So, but yeah,
they played on far worse stuff back in the day than artificial turf.
Yeah.
that looked like concrete.
I think the one main concern was they were doing the My Cause, My Cleats, and they even tweeted out Kyler Murray's cleats before the game. They were kind of high top. And I want to say, I don't remember who it was last year, but there was a problem last year with the same thing when they were wearing the custom cleats, and there was someone had some sort of leg injury. I'll have to look it up after, but I'm not saying that's why it happened, but it was something to look at.
I'm about to add my man Chris Jensen on here. And what's up, Chris? We were just talking about the turf and the grass being a difference, and my cleats on Kyler Murray last night. If it was anything that had to do with that, the point I was about to say next was just, I think it's just at a time in the game where so much speed and just so much, it's just injury is part of the game, man. It's really nothing you can do to prevent it, especially with the players just getting faster and hitting harder. And I definitely think the cleats, though, are changing as the years go on. Chris, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on anything Cardinals related, Kyler Murray related, or Kliff Kingsbury, pretty much what we was touching on before we jump on to the Suns.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, you talk about what less than 2 minutes in. Uh, you talk about a season that's practically over before the game, and now you have your franchise quarterback with a season-ending injury. So, I mean, I'm kind of like I wrote on last night, and I think pretty much everybody has said in Burn City, it's just one of those things where it's just like it's been one thing after another for them. Um, from the start of the season, it just feels like it's literally just been one thing after another. They feel like a team on paper that can win, but it just does not transition to the field. I mean, one more than one way or another, it just hasn't happened. And when it comes to Kliff, I mean, there's so many financial implications. I know people want to just move him out and put Sean Payton there or whomever there, but I just don't see it happening as bad as I would want it to. It's just like, can they? Yeah, but will it burn their pockets? And I guess that's the thing is it worth the money for them to move off of him and legitimately look at getting another coach in there? I think that's the really big question.
Yeah, it's kind of Franklin said the same thing without the money aspect. His gut feeling is just saying they might stay with him. I think the fans is done with him. I feel like at some point franchise has to listen to the fans, but he definitely can get another run, man. I mean, if this team was healthy, who knows? They might be fighting for a wild card right now. I'm 100% healthy all season,
That's a
which is
fact.
unheard of. But it's been abnormal the amount of injuries going on with the Cardinals. Anybody had anything to jump on the Cardinals? One last take, and then we can jump on the Suns, talk about their struggles.
Good.
All right, yeah, Suns. Four in a row they lost, including two over the weekend to New Orleans Pelicans. Before that, they got blown out by two playoff teams. The East champions last year, the Celtics and Dallas Mavericks, who eliminated them last season. Both of those games were pretty ugly, and then the Pelicans. They fought the Pelicans pretty tough, but they fell short in both games. I'll start with you, Chris, since you just jumped on. What you're thinking about the Suns right now with injuries and everything?
Me and Jacob did a Spaces the other day after the Mavericks lost, and we were talking about they had the Celtics next, they had the Pelicans next, and it was like, what's the chances of them literally losing all three of those games? And I was like, probably not high. Maybe they lose two. You lose all three. You lose to the Celtics in just probably the worst blowout besides the Mavericks game, and then you drop both of these Pelicans games. And yeah, there's injuries at play, but you can't just keep using that when pretty much every team you play is dealing with their own set of injuries. The Pelicans, they didn't have Brandon Ingram, and that's a huge, huge part of their offense. So you can't just keep saying, oh, no Cameron Johnson, no, Devin Booker on the second half of it. It's at some point you got to just be able to say this team does not have everything that it needs. And then you look at the Crowder almost trade, and I look at who they almost traded them for, Kenyon Martin Jr. or Eric Gordon. I'm like, they can get it done, but is that really what
Right.
you want to give up after this long standstill of not getting them off? So I just don't know, man.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing they missing is that physical force, like that physical presence. Somebody that's going to get some hard fouls when they need it most. Somebody that's going to stick up for their teammates a little more. Franklin, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a tough week for the Suns, honestly. It's not that it's shocking that they lost these games either. Those are like three really tough opponents. It's the way they lost to Dallas and the way they lost to Boston. Catapulted that with how they played against New Orleans. I'm not really. It wasn't really shocking of how they lost to New Orleans. And like to Chris's defense as well, it's like they have their own set of injuries too. And not only did the Pelicans not have Brandon Ingram, they didn't have Herb Jones as well, who's their best defender.
Right.
So there is like a lot of variables for that the Pelicans can play as well. Even though they did have their franchise player in Zion Williamson, who went off against them, and they had no answer for them. But there comes a time, again, to Chris's point, where it's like, do the Suns have enough to make a deep run? And I think they have a really good team when healthy to be that semifinals round. And maybe if depending on injuries to other teams, Western Conference Finals. But do they have scoring alongside Devin Booker from a consistent basis to take that next step? To me, the answer is no, and it's been no for a while. And I think with the team they currently have constructed now, it's good. It's good enough to make playoffs, but I don't know if it's good enough to take that next step. And I think one of the things that they're struggling with mainly is getting to the free throw line. Like, it's a huge problem, especially in these tight games. They just cannot get to the free throw line. Like, yeah, we can say refs this, refs that. They blow calls. They blow calls in every game. But there comes a time where they got to get more physical on the court, which is that's another point to what you were saying, Roland, is they need to get that guy that's not afraid to not only just get you into foul trouble and set the tone, but a player that can actually get you more shots at the free throw line. They just need to find ways to get to the free throw line, because they're like top 15 in every other category but free throw lines. And then and on top of that, they foul a ton. So they're putting other teams at the free throw line. And I think that's where it's like separates them from these games, to where if they're not getting off to a great shooting night and they're turning the ball over, then the fouls are just going to happen, and they're going to go off to a wrong foot. So I think they'll be fine, as it's a rut, that happens in basketball. But in terms of, like, I'm thinking long-term in playoffs, man, they gotta figure out something that trade deadline to take that next step to hopefully making that championship run.
Yeah, that's the next question I was going to throw to everybody. Whoever wants to jump in first is scale of 1 to 10. Like, what is the concern? Like you said, it's a long season, 82 games. They could easily win 15 out of the next 20, and we won't even think about this come February, March. But what do you think the level of concern is? 1 to 10. I think it's around a 2 or 3. I think it could turn into a bigger problem if it's not fixed. But right now, I don't think it's at a point where there should be any huge concern. They need to make smart moves, make some smart trades, get some players back.
Yeah, I think it's probably at like I'd probably say it's maybe at like a 4, and that's just because of recent losses. Now, if they lose to the Rockets tonight, it's going to be a hard 4. Like, it's going to be an undeniable 4. Yeah, it may be a 4.8, and it's just because the Rockets are not a playoff team, let alone a championship contending team. They're just a young building team that already upset you once, and you just can't pull out no Devin Booker, no Cam Johnson. You can't keep doing that. Like, when you're a contending team, that means you have guys 1 through 10 who can step up. And you really don't see that consistently right now. Franklin, from the offseason, and heck, even Lamar, Jacob, Rowan, you guys have seen, I mean, even when we're listening to these practice sessions, how many times did you hear Monty Williams say, McCall Bridges is going to be the next, we've been working. He's going to be the guy. We don't really need another guy. If we get another guy, fine. But if we got him and we got Cam Johnson, and to Johnson's credit, he was kind of stepping up, but focusing on, Bridges, he has it. And then other nights, it's just like, where did you go? It's like you look for him and he's just kind of somewhere in the corner, and that's that. And then other nights he's flying around, he's on both ends, but it's not consistent. And that was the problem last year, and it looks like that's the problem this year.
Yeah, I think him and Aiden both have problems being aggressive game in and game out.
Yeah, Aiden too. I mean, for the love of all things, I get you're good at post turnarounds, fadeaways, mid-rangers. Get to the basket and dunk it. Like, how hard is that for you? I cringe. Even when it goes in, every time he backs down a guard and hits this post fadeaway like he's the next Hakeem, Magic Johnson build. And I'm like, dude, you get to the basket. You're literally limiting your points and rebounds because you want to just, it doesn't make sense. I don't
Watching
get
it against Zion was hard to watch because you have Zion just bulldoze into the basket, and either that ball's going in or he's shooting 2 at the line. And then on the other end, you have Aiden kind of dribbling, fade away, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Yes.
And you can hear the Suns announcers kind of just like
they get so deflated. They get so deflated.
Because he's 7 feet.
Yeah.
And you
He's
have to keep
7
saying
feet.
it. Every time he does it, it's like you have to say it with the same energy.
Yeah.
And Ayton did this thing where he had this attitude because, I didn't get paid as much as Luka. I didn't get paid as much as Trae Young, who are in my same draft class. This is why. And the other night he said something like, I don't care about regular season games, which a lot of people don't. But you probably should be.
Yeah, you're not old enough to say that yet.
Yeah, you're not productive enough.
You didn't win no championships.
Yeah, like you can't really say that right now. Like you should care about this. Should be your prove it year. Last year should have been more of a, but this should be your prove. I got the money. Let me show y'all why I'm worth the money. And I don't know.
That was my biggest, I guess, downfall in him coming out of college, man. He was like that in college. I used to watch him in Arizona, just little baby hook shots every time. And then you got players like Mobley, who's now with the Cavs, who they finish with a dunk every time, man. Like you said, Zion.
Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, man, they throw that up, man. Like it's crazy. But
yeah, Ayton could do that, man. I don't know why
he does it.
Yeah.
The few times he does it, I'm like, do you not see the impact that has, like the momentum shift that takes place when you catch a lob and finish, or when you just back somebody? But no, you go right back to this baby hook like 20 times out of 21 times. Like, I don't get it. He's gonna probably do it tonight. And Sengun, I think that's how you say it. He's not like that dude is serious. I probably wouldn't even. Yeah,
he passes the rock really well too, man. Like he's a really good passer. Yeah,
I wouldn't play the radio with him, and he probably will. But it's no, Devin Booker tonight, so you're gonna have to be more productive. Like you're gonna have to have a bigger game. Stop, be more aggressive. You just got to be more aggressive.
Yeah, I think that's really how the Suns. I mean, not the Suns. I think that's really how the Pelicans beat them. I mean, they was kind of just bullying them. They just in the paint. And they let them hear about it too. They was talking.
That's crazy. You talk about after the game about that Zion dunk. You got a chance to play him again, and you go out there and lose again, and don't do nothing about it.
You're the same result.
That's
Chris Paul shot 3 for 10 that next game, and it was like, oh my goodness! Like
all this dog talk and no dog. Like I've never understood that. Like, the fun part is we get a back-to-back. Okay, so it's going to be interesting. And it's like, we didn't have Booker. Okay,
Yeah, they trying to outplay people, man. They trying to run and shoot. Sometimes you got to get dirty, throw an elbow, get a hard foul. Sometimes you just can't let them just keep walking over you.
Well, that's why I'm not going to front. That's why I respected Zion Williamson saying what he said after that dunk he did, where it's like, yeah, that was out of character for me, but they knocked my teammates out of the first round last year. So, and if they were, and even said, I wouldn't be upset if they were to do it to me. And I'm like, that's respect. All right. And I thought they were going to answer back, and I'm like, dang, man, like it's
kind of like you just said, Rowan, with the 3-point shooting. It's like, and it's no disrespect, but when your best bench shooter is Damian Lee by far, you kind of got to walk back the whole 3 bombs away. Like it's Damian Lee, and then it just kind of falls off a cliff. Some nights it can be Dwayne Washington, Saric, Ish Wainwright, Landry Shamet whenever he wakes up. Like you don't have those weapons.
That's part of the reason why I think the Suns were really eyeing Eric Gordon, which I kind of understand. But Eric Gordon's also shooting 34% from 3 this year. He's kind of taking a step down. But maybe scheme in a new team can change that over the course of the season. But that's why I understand why they're trying to find a shooting off the bench, because they're trying to find somebody to pair with Damian Lee. Because like you said, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense if Damian Lee's like your best shooter coming off the bench. Then you have a little bit of a problem, in my opinion. Because there's sometimes where he's finishing games for them, like actually finishing games for them. That's when I'm like, that's like
one of the closers.
Yeah, that's crazy. That shows it's all mentality, man. They got the talent.
Yeah.
They just tipped off against the Rockets.
Yeah, and like I said, that's one of those ones where it's like if you can't beat them, even if it comes down to the wire, but if you can't get over that, then there's gonna be a lot of that's 5 in a row at that point. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't get away with 5 in a row in the West. In the East, a little bit, like you can still be in the pack. 5 in a row in the West, you are down. Like you're down the ladder now. So
Yeah, well,
What's the
Rockets up by 7 right
timetable?
now.
Go ahead, Lamar. My bad.
So the Rockets up by like just started, but the Rockets up by 7.
They just started. That's all right.
Yeah. Game
hopefully
run.
they can try to bounce back. But no, right now the top team is the Pelicans and then the Grizzlies, then the Nuggets, and now the Suns, which, like I said, that's just a mighty change of events from where we were.
1
I
week.
mean, you could say a week and a half
2
ago,
weeks
a week
ago.
ago.
A week ago.
But that's what it is now. You lose a couple games and now you're fourth versus first, which they can get it back, but you lose this one, you still got the fourth seed, but now you're really, really fighting for that fourth seed before the Kings come up on you and take it because they're another tough team. So
Warriors are coming up too.
yeah, and the Warriors are revamping. Heck, the Lakers they're trying to revamp. I'm not sure how much revamping they can get done, but
And the crazy,
I don't think we got to worry about them.
and the
Don't
crazy
let them
thing
get
for
what's the name from the Pistons though.
yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
let
And the
them
crazy
take
thing
him.
about the Warriors is they're like 12-2 at home, and the Suns don't get to play them at Footprint anymore. So that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But I think the Suns match up well with Golden State for whatever reason. So yeah, we'll see.
What's the status on Booker? Is he just day to day, game to game, or
Yeah,
he gonna be out a couple weeks?
he's day to day with like a left hamstring tightness. So they're kind of just he was shooting around early, like at practice earlier today. Seeing clips and whatnot, but yeah, they have him day to day right now. So I think it's probably hamstrings are kind of tricky, so they're gonna probably rest him for the week and then see where he's at. It could be less than that, but I'm gonna say like a week because it's like tight right now. But my guess they're probably gonna wait till they get back home on Saturday and then they're gonna look at it again. But during this road stretch, they're probably not gonna play the rest of the way. Which is a smart decision. He's your franchise player.
Yep.
Yeah, he's all they got, man.
You ain't lying.
Well, yeah, this has been Feel the Burn podcast presented by Burn City Sports. Jacob Harden, Lamar Fields, Franklin Miller, Chris Denson. I'm Rowan Donaghy. Thank y'all for tuning in. See y'all next week.